Hello, hello. So in this video, I'm going to talk very fast about how professional marks are scored in ACCA papers. And if you feel overwhelmed, feel free to pause the video or to reduce the speed or do whatever that will help you to decipher the message. Okay, so the idea is that you cannot ignore professional marks, especially for those exams where we have 20 of those, like let's say advanced performance management or advanced financial management. So you need to know how to score those. Now, when we are talking about professional papers, we need to acknowledge the overriding principle. And the principle is that you are not paid to copy paste Wikipedia. You are paid to take a piece of scenario to tell a company about itself and explain how this relates to knowledge. As such, even if you know the full syllabus, if you do not copy paste parts of the scenario, and if you do not use the scenario, the company specific, to apply your knowledge, then you will not pass. So we need to copy paste, then tell what it means in terms of the theory, and then give a conclusion. I will give you an example from strategic business reporting. So when we are talking about fixed assets and costs that are going to be capitalized, we say that training of employees will not be capitalized. But if you just say it like according to IS 16, trainings will not be capitalized, it does not really answer the question because it does not explain. But if you said the company paid $1,000 on employees' training to teach them how to use the machinery. However, this cost was not needed to bring the asset to the location and condition. And then you give a conclusion. As such, they cannot be capitalized and should be expensed instead. That is how your answer should be made. Another thing is that you need not to advise. You should not just tell the examiner what the right answer is. Instead, you need to apply this technique that is called two-handed accountant. You need to say, on one hand, it's like that. On the other hand, it's like that. And that is exactly what you need to do because, first of all, the marks are earned not only for the final answer, but for your approach, for your discussion, for your justification, for each and every relevant point as a model answer marking scheme says. So this means that you need to come up with as many different relevant points as possible. And obviously, it's easier to do when you look at the issue from different perspectives. That's why you need to do on one hand, on the other hand. You need to use words such as because, therefore, such as, consequently, so, and so on, because you need to explain, justify. So another important thing would be the correct usage of paragraphs. Let me give you an example. If you just write, it is raining, it is cold outside, I need to put warm valleys, you will not get a mark. Because when the marker reads your answer, they read it by paragraph. So they say, it's raining, so what? It's cold outside, okay, so where is the conclusion? I need to put warm waterproof shoes on. Yes, but why? So for you to get a mark, you need to put everything in a single paragraph. You need to mind the verb. So for example, if a verb is a list, you will just list the ideas with no justification. But that is highly unlikely to happen for professional level. It's not just audit and assurance. It's not just performance management. No, it's a professional level. No listing, explaining. When you are asked to evaluate, it's either that you are asked to calculate something or that you are asked to talk about benefits and drawbacks on one hand, on the other hand. The same would be with the assess. Discussion requires you to talk about the issue, and it requires you to justify. And if a question just asks you to comment on something, this means that you will get if you are asked to briefly comment, you will get 1-2 marks. If you're asked to comment, you will get 2-3 marks. And if you're asked to discuss, you will get something like 4 and more marks for this very question. If a question is illustrate, then you are supposed to give an example, preferably from the scenario. If not, then something relevant to whatever is going on there. But it is very important to pay attention whether your question indeed asks you to give a piece of advice. Why? Because on a normal day in business, in consulting business, there is different price list to a client. So if there is a client who just wants to know the issues, that's going to be one price. If they want to know how to fix the issues, that's going to be another price. And if they want to implement their ideas, if they want you to actually execute the project, it's totally different price list. And as such, they want you to distinguish between these requirements. Now, as I told you, there are going to be 20 out of 100 marks that are professional for some of the exams, and we cannot ignore them. Now, what are the marks given for? Well, communication marks are given for report format and structure. So you will need to write report, then you will need to write to, and let's say the CEO, from, and if you do not know, just write an accountant. Then you would put the date, and then there's going to be a subject. And subject is something that can be fitted within one single line. Otherwise, it's introduction. Introduction is needed as well. So introduction means that you just rewrite the requirement. We rewrite the requirement using the word it. So the report discusses blah, blah, blah. The report evaluates. Then it assesses. So we need to rewrite that. You need to use headings and subheadings and introduction. So you need to make your answer structured. Report layout is tested in question number 1. For the rest of the questions, usually it is assumed that it's some sort of email, memo, whatever. So there is no requirement to write this report header. Also, you need to be effective in your communication to get communication marks. Means that you need to be answering the question that was set, not the question that you think is asked. And this means that if you are asked to offer 3 measures, then you need to offer 3 measures, not 2, not 4, 3. If you were specifically asked not to offer anything, then you will have not to offer anything to get a mark. So you will get a mark for not doing something. Well, you need to use a proper style, proper language clarity. So this means that you cannot use these pictograms such as that and so on. You need to use normal words. Obviously, you can abbreviate. Like, let's say with advanced financial management, you can write weighted average cost of capital as an abbreviation. The same goes for return on capital employed, because everybody does that. You need to present your calculations in spreadsheet. So this means that your answer is the main source of your answer is the tax document. And then if you need to calculate something, you will have to refer to it. So you will need to say that as seen in Appendix 1 of spreadsheets, NPV of ABC project is, let's say, 1,000, which is significantly above 0, and so on. So this means that the calculation of NPV should be done there, and everything should be done in spreadsheets unless it is something that is very easy, like A divided by B. You need to use a computer-based exam tool. So if you can apply a formula NPV or internal rate of return formula, you are supposed to use it. Your answer should be easy to follow and understand. Well, it can be hard because you are going to be stressed. And finally, your tone should be the correct one. So please do not blame. Be polite. Be ethical to whoever reads your report. That was a part about communication. Now, as for analysis and evaluation, you will be given this mark for the use of data in appendix. So basically, when you are calculating something, you get a mark for actually arriving at the right answer or following the right approach, and also for the mere fact that you have calculated something. Another thing is that you need to be able to analyze and give a final conclusion. Like, for example, when we're talking about advanced performance management, you need to be able to say whether the report measures performance towards the mission and objectives of the company. But the discussion should be balanced and reasoned. So what does it mean? If you are asked to talk about benefits and drawbacks of, let's say, the issue of equity compared to the issue of debt, you need to have something like 4 pluses and 4 minuses for drawbacks if you are given 8 marks in total. So it should be 4 to 4, not 2 to 6, not 1 to 7. And this means that if you're short in time and you feel like you are able to give just 2 points, then write 1 benefit and 1 drawback instead of writing just 2 benefits or 2 drawbacks, so that your answer is balanced, even if it is not full. And also, for your analysis and evaluation, you are given marks for being able to provide a relevant conclusion. So, for example, when we have calculated NPV or internal rate of return or whatever, we say much greater than, only slightly lower than 0, something like that. So you need not just to say that it is above or below, but you need to show the magnitude. That was about analysis and evaluation. Now, as for skepticism, skepticism is when we say, it's not going to work. So we get this mark when we use howevers in our discussion. So for example, however, the company is listed, so it may as well be that it will not be possible for it because. However, the company is owned by family and family relies on dividend to support their living, so they will not be able to make this project because it will upset the dividend pattern short term. Maybe the company will not be able to do that because it has cash problems, so it has nowhere to get the investment money from. And also you will be given the mark for saying that the data is insufficient, that the data may be not relevant, that something is only partly measured by the indicators, or that there are too many indicators, or that the idea is great, but there will be problems with implementation because the managers are not very well educated, are not very experienced ones, are not very good leaders, maybe because the culture of the company does not work. So try not to do that only about money or mostly about money. Try to do that about culture. Try to say that it will not work because people will not be used to, let's say, democratic style. That is skepticism. And finally, commercial acumen, that is the easy, because if you formulate the answer in a way that it brings you technical marks, it brings you commercial acumen by default. Why? Well, first of all, if you want to get a mark for justification, you need to copy paste pieces of scenario. Obviously, you do not need to use parentheses. You need to adjust some English so that the sentence would look like it is in place. It's not just copy pasted, but still you use these bits. You quote the scenario, and when you quote the scenario, you say what it means. So this means that your answer is going to be relevant to the scenario. Also, there has to be industry specifics. Like, let's say, when we're talking about car manufacturer, then safety is the most important. When we're talking about clothes manufacturer, then the frequent designs are very important. It's about using on one hand and on the other hand. On one hand, the concerns are valid. On the other hand, the concerns are not valid. And if there is somebody's opinion, we need to challenge their opinion. So if our scenario says the director thinks, blah, 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 we need to say, well, on one hand, the director is right because, on the other hand, the director is not right because. And if you were asked to suggest, then you suggest whatever is appropriate. So for example, if it is a teeny tiny company, it may not invest millions of dollars into some new investment project because it will just not have enough cash resources. And that is it. This is how the professional marks are scored. That is this short overview, and you need to practice to earn them. And please pay attention when you read model answers. Please pay attention to how the marks were allocated, what the marks were awarded for. And that is it. Hope it was short and hope it was very educational for you. And bye.